Hi, my name is Marty Gallagher. I'm an alumni member of the Springfield Boys and Girls Club. What we're going to hear today are members of the association is going to give you information in terms of what went on in the past, what's going on now, and what will happen in the future. We would like you to get involved in the Springfield Boys and Girls Club Alumni Association. It would be very helpful in terms of the trickle-down effect that has happened through the leadership of people that have gone before us. People like Mark Moran and Art Jones. People today that are involved like Charles Hollins and Art Jones. So again, we'd like to put that out to you and come back to the club, and we'll see you in September. What we're going to talk about now are the good old days. What happened at the Boys Club as we were growing up. What memories most sticks in your mind in regards to what went on back then?
Well, we call it the Chestnut Street Clubhouse, and one of the foundations of the clubhouse was you started at a very young age, and if you're fortunate enough to stay in the neighborhood long enough, you will matriculate through the program to be a senior member, and in the process you were engaged in different activities that helped develop your character and your physical skills. For example, I joined the Boys Club in 1945. I was turned 6 years old, and they had a juvenile room with all kinds of pictures of Walt Disney's productions, and you spent after school from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock there, and then in part of that you learned how to swim. You had a little opportunity to go to the third floor gym, but basically that was your little haven until you became a junior, and you didn't become a junior until you were 10 years old.
Well, what might have been some of the other activities that you were involved in back then, other than right in the club itself? What might have been some of the other activities that took place outside the club?
Well, you went to school, neighborhood school then primarily, so every boy that was your age went to Hooker School or Crew Street School or Liberty School up the hill. And then when you went to middle school, which we called junior high school with Chestnut, which was down the street from the club, and that way there you were with your peers for most of the time aside from being at home. So you really grew up together.
There was really a lot of unity back then, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, you had a lot of common denominators, you know. You came from, not dirt poor, but poor enough that you appreciate when you had something.
Sure. We're all poor and we didn't know it, you know. That's the truth. Bob, you had created a book. We're not pushing that right now, but we'd like to hear some of the experiences that you had as a member of the Boys Club.
Oh my God, there's so many, but actually I'm a little bit of a reverse from Art, because my first experience was going to the camp. And after the camp, I began going to the club after I'd been there for several years. And my dad had bought a home. We lived in a Six Corners neighborhood to begin when he got out of the Second World War. But we moved to the park, so I was kind of a foreigner. I used to have to take the bus all the way down to the city, walk Lyman Street, walk up to Chestnut to the club. But my experiences at both the camp and the club were just the most memorable and most vivid. And I think of all the things that I have to remember, the people that I associated with, not only the leaders, but the kids themselves. And many of them are still very close friends, like Art. Art was, part of our generation, my generation.
Let's focus on the camp. Let's talk about some memories that went out at the camp. I remember Art was a director out there at one time.
Yeah.
I worked as a junior counselor under him.
Yeah. Actually, I started out there as a camper for a number of years, which was just great. Then I became the pots and pans washer in the dining hall and Rotary Hall, and then I became a counselor and then a section director, and I was a riflery director. I did all of those things that it helped me establish myself. You know, one of the interesting things is that, and I don't know how many people would recall this, but when I went into the military, it was so easy because I experienced camp life. I knew how to make a bunk. I knew what the mess hall was going to be all about. I knew how to organize a locker and the like. And these things were all invaluable experiences. And the programs that were held, some of them planned, many of them impromptu.
If I could hitchhike off of that idea in terms of the lessons that we learned at the club, when I was in the military, I was stationed in Maryland, and I became a swimming instructor there. And I also refereed basketball games. Well, where did I learn those two skills? I learned how to referee at the old boys club when I was 15 years old, learned how to swim, got my licenses through the boys club at that particular time. And I was making more money teaching swimming lessons when I was in the Navy and refereeing basketball games and the Navy was paying me. So, you know, there were great lessons that we learned, but not only that, they helped us out in terms of our careers and our future careers.
Yeah, in regard to learning skills, at one time, Springfield back in the 30s and 40s and 50s had what was considered the best school system. And prior to the towns getting big enough to have their own school systems, Classical High School was the catalyst for all youngsters that wanted from town to go to a school. And our neighborhood, the north end of the city, we were so athletic that all of us couldn't go to the same school. And I recall I grew up on Essex Street, and there was a lamppost there, and there was about 20 of us, and we flipped. And the losers had to go to the Classical. I lost, I went to Classical, me and about 10 others. And in that realm of the opportunity, we took the general course at Classical, and we were able to get accepted into college.
Yes.
And in that light, I was able to be accepted into Springfield College, and it all came through the experience at the Boys Club, because one of the unique things about the Boys Club and the current Boys and Girls Club is the leadership. The leadership was dedicated, committed, very caring adults, and were sharp enough to read you as an individual unbeknown to you and give you that kind of guidance and direction that later on when you look back at it, you really were really blessed.
If I could spin off of that too, is what a lot of people don't know is that Springfield College was huge in terms of how the direction of the Boys and the Girls Clubs went in the United States. Every director that directed the Springfield Boys Club before Gary McCarthy were Springfield College graduates. And that was all started, by the way, maybe I shouldn't mention this, but it was started through the YMCA.
Right, that's true.
And so a great influence that was made through Springfield College in terms of the type of character that came in to the whole Boys Club picture, the triangle, the body, mind, and spirit. I often think of in terms of Springfield College. You guys wrestled on the Springfield College team, most of you, and you know what an impact that was in terms of unity.
To go back to what you were saying, the influence, in my experience, the biggest influence was Larry Weekly.
Right.
Okay, he was not only the assistant camp director and later the camp director at the Boys Club camp, and the assistant executive director at the Boys Club, but he was our coach. He had asked me to join the team, and it was something that I'll always cherish. And it was something that got me into 50 years of being as connected with the sport. But what I like to say is that there were a number of individuals who followed like Larry's footsteps, went to Springfield College, were involved in either recreation youth leadership, the RYL, went into social work, or became educators, teachers, principals, and the like. And they all, in my case, I was emulating, you know, what I aspired to be like my coach. He was my mentor. He was almost a surrogate father, for God's sakes. He was that super an individual. But the other members of the club, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, you know, the Alisi family and the Moses family and the Gallagher family, the Birdies, and and the like. They all added a tremendous thing. I was making a list today of counselors that we had that were older than we are.
Sure.
Joe Nye was one of them.
Right.
Franny Graham, great storyteller. Peter Pignelli was
Sure.
was a counselor there. Al Alisi, and was a terrific counselor and influence, and so many others that it was like Art says, a big family. You know, I wasn't from the North End, but I hung with the North End pretty much. You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for the both of you to come down for this interview. I will say this, that both of you are great leaders.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure to be here
Thank you.
with my old pal.
What we're going to do at this point is a segment on the woman's side or the girls' side. Very often, because I was a Boys Club alumni, we pretty much focused on the boys' side most of the time. I don't want to do that because the girls and the women were great leaders in this community. And we want to emphasize that at this particular point. But Chris, the first thing I'd like to ask you is, what's the best experience that you've had since you've been involved in the Springfield Boys and Girls Club?
Actually, the best experience I've had is volunteering and serving Thanksgiving dinner a few years ago. And I was doing it with my daughter, who was then maybe about 14 years old. And just for her, being with her and seeing the kids and watching her interact with the kids, and my discussions with her afterwards about that experience and how much she learned and grew from it.
That's enormously important because the trickle-down effect that has been created from the beginning of time with the Springfield Boys and Girls Club up to this point has been unbelievable in terms of the leadership that's been provided in the city of Springfield. Looking back in that 15-year period, other than that event, what would you say sparks your mind more than anything else in terms of a positive thing that might have happened?
I think in the recent years, we've had a few very positive things, especially for the teen girls, younger girls, but also the teen girls, which is a market that we're really trying to go after a little bit more. And that's been the renovation of the girls' gym, that we had a great grant that we renovated the girls' gym, and also renovating or building a dance studio for the girls. I mean, I think that those are two very positive things on the girls' side, which is an area that is a club, we're the Boys and Girls Club, but we're really trying to put some focus on attracting more teen girls and having more offerings for them.
That's great. What are some of the other programs that have been created on the girls' side that have been effective in terms of the character building?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's been some mentorship going on, especially even with one of our alumni, Talia, who's in teaching a double Dutch course. So I think that there's been a lot of mentoring going on the girls' side, which is very positive.
Sure. I know they do a program on Bright Nights, and then they do the one for the Festival of Trees. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Right. Both of those are, programs, universal programs open to the boys and the girls. But we just celebrated our 15th year with the Festival of Trees, which is a huge fundraiser for the club. And each year from the beginning, we have been allowed to put the Peter Pan bus in the parade of big balloons and have our kids on the double-decker bus participating in the parade, having someone out there dressed up as a tree to attract people into the festival after the parade. But I think that the kids just love to be part of the parade. I think that's very exciting to them. Much the same as we do with bringing the kids to the Bright Nights, to go through the Bright Nights and see that beautiful display of lights that they might not otherwise be able to partake in, and they just love that trip also.
Great. That program, by the way, is named after my brother who passed away a few years back, and we were delighted that the Boys and Girls Club went along with that being noted in terms of that program. Thank you. So in terms of memories that you had at the Girls Club, but also at the camp, what are some of the memories that you can remember that went on while you were at the Girls Club camp out in Holland?
Oh, I had so many memories of especially going to the girls' club. Bunny Leslie was one of my mentors. She was executive director at the time. And I think going to the girls' club and also going to camp, we went to camp with all different races and religions. So, I put that into the way I've brought up my children. And we were brought up like that in a family, never to be prejudiced. So I think it's enabled me to get along with everyone that I come across. It also, they encouraged you that you could do anything that you wanted to do. And I had a lot of confidence. Whatever job I went out, I got, and I'm retired executive director of Hamden District Medical Society. And when my granddaughter was around 10, I participated in the business. They had a business day at the Springfield Boys and Girls Club. And I brought my granddaughter along. I have a picture of her with our insignia of the Hamden District Medical Society. And now she is doing her rotations for a physician assistant. So at the camp, like I had said before, my two sisters went to the camp, and I was the only one that cried when my mother and father came to get us because I didn't want to go home. They wanted to go home. And we had great experience. I looked forward every single year going there. And we probably, being one of 9 children, we probably never would have had a chance to ever go to overnight camp if it wasn't for the Boys and Girls Club.
Great experiences.
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
Who would you say had the greatest effect on you in terms of character building when you went
I
to the
think it
Girls
was
Club?
Bunny Leslie and
Bunny
a few
Leslie.
of the counselors
Yeah.
at the camp.
A name that I remember is Chicha Crowley, was it?
Yeah, that Chipper Birdie was one of the counselors.
Uh-huh.
And she had a lot of influence. She was a classy lady. At the time, she was she worked at Steiger's. And she was a beautiful woman and always had a lot of class. And I remember going to her apartment down the South End. Her and her husband got married, and they invited a lot of us girls down to the apartment. And I can't remember who the sewing teacher was, but that's where I learned to sew. I remember making a beautiful navy blue taffeta dress for Easter one time. So I had a wonderful experience.
Great. Chris, as a new director of the board, where do you see the Boys and Girls Club going now?
I think that we're really looking to explore the programs that we're offering, working with the new executive director that's going to be coming in. I've met with him, very excited about trying to expand our program offerings and to get it more systematized in when the offerings are taking place so that we can get the maximum involvement of the kids in the programs. And like I said, possibly looking to try to expand additional volunteers to come in. The sewing example was a perfect one where, if we could get volunteers to come in and offer things like that to the girls, I think we just need to really look and explore some of those things.
Sure, that's great information. One of the things that I would like to emphasize in terms of the people that are watching this program is that what we're looking for are more alumni people to come aboard, both on the women's and the men's side. In addition to that, what you can do through your IRAs or whatever, you can contribute as a beneficiary of the Springfield Boys and Girls Club. Now, those things are very important. We have to understand, and sometimes it's easy to forget, what the programs at the Boys and the Girls Club did for us, we wouldn't be where we are today. There's been many, many, many successful people that have graduated from the Boys Club that have not only become leaders in our community, but have become state leaders and also international leaders. 3 people that come to mind, for example, is Richie Neal, who was working over in Ireland there to create peace there. Another one is Abe Moses of the Moses family. Large family of 13 kids, and every one of them had a piece within a program at the Boys Club, whether they were counselors or they just attended the clubs. But Abe Moses was an ambassador to Iran. He was a vice president of First National Bank. He was on the committee to elect JFK. So again, the people that have graduated from the Boys Club and went through that whole process have affected not only just the people in our community, but in some cases throughout the world. Eddie Bolin, who was a congressman, did the same thing. He had applied different strategies through the House in terms of creative, positive things that took place in this country. And then there was Henry Thomas in the black community that became, I believe, the director of board of directors up at University of Massachusetts, enormously affected the black community. And most of the things that he learned, probably other than his family, was through the character building that went on, that we learned at the Springfield Boys and Girls Club. Thanks for coming on. Glad to have you.
Welcome.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If I can think of anyone over the last 25 years that has been involved with the Springfield Boys and Girls Club, you would have to be one of them.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Yeah, you've done some great work up there. And not just myself, but many people have appreciated what you've done up there. For example, the adult basketball program.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that program.
Well, that was a challenge. Actually, it was a dare. Someone dared me to do it because I didn't really have a basketball resume at the time. I'm from Alabama. We believe in football, and football, faith, and family, independent on which household you came out of, came the order in which those proceeded. It was a dare by a friend to say, well, what can we do with adult basketball that we haven't done yet? So I did some research and working with the Department of Health and Human Services at that time, and still now for 19 plus years, I wanted to kind of fuse health and human services, men, family health, boys and girls health, with a sport that was adored now globally. Using these games as the draw and getting some of the amateurs and professionals from the area to really come in, showcase their talent, and put these messages of good health practice, healthy messages to young people that were experiencing changes in their bodies, to remind us who are still young at heart that there's a responsibility to this temple, this gift that was given to us by virtue of spiritual health, mental health, and emotional maturity.
That's great. I know Travis Best had some influence in terms of that program that you put together.
Yes.
Could you tell us about his involvement in regards to that?
Absolutely. I said, hey, Travis, well, you're a household name, and you're from Springfield, though you reside in Atlanta. You still have an obligation to a city that's given you so much in terms of your start, and he agreed. And he said, how can I help? I said, well, basically, if you could come back and assist us with the tournament and making sure young people understand the history and the hard work that goes into becoming this professional basketball player, but more importantly, your humble start and how it all began through your junior high school at that time. I know that's a foreign word to some of our audience, but your trials and tribulations, and that everything wasn't always hunky-dory or peachy. That there was some times where you had to really challenge yourself, and you were really challenged. You could have easily done the wrong thing, but you elected to stay on the straight and narrow, and an illustrious career and a lot of supporting fans here. Let's bring that back and bring you back and continue along that path.
Of all the people that you met at the Boys Club over the years, character-wise, who do you think influenced you more than anybody else?
Well, number one, everyone remembers and still have a heartfelt, deep spot in their heart for Gary McCarthy. Gary was the father to so many, though he's, definitely enjoying his retirement and his grandkids now. There were so many of us who looked to his guidance and, that arm around the shoulder of a supportive adult in your life in our early development. Gary McCarthy would come to mind.
Now, did you go to the camp out in
I did.
Springfield?
I did. And
What was
I still shake when you say "Old Man Logan." I still,
That was the
I'm
story,
still
wasn't it, huh?
horrified when you say "Old Man Logan" when it's dark anywhere.
Sure. We can't get into what that story was about,
Right.
but obviously the people that are going to be watching this, the alumni,
Right.
will remember the story of Old Man Logan,
Oh, yeah.
among some of the other stories that were
yeah.
told out there. What did you enjoy most about
It was the camaraderie. It was meeting people from all over the city.
Yeah.
Because we're a city of neighborhoods, 14 plus neighborhoods, and to meet folks from Indian Orchard or from the South End, North End. And I was a Hungry Hill kid, which is now Lower Liberty Heights. Well, whatever that means.
Sure.
But, to walk then across that catwalk, which is no longer there,
Sure.
which adjoined nursery in Stafford and then through the sand dunes and up to the Mecca in the sand, the Boys Club. Along the way, you would pick up your friends. That was the Charles Hollins, one of my best friends even till today. The Bowens and so many Martells and so many who were, neighbors in the housing projects, at that time. But we would all get to the club and we all had our, rituals and our little routines, Mark. We'd go swim for a couple hours. Definitely gym time was probably the favorite. And then we were challenged to do some other things, team handball, baseball. We were challenged to go to the Keystone Club, and of course there were girls on the other side at that time. So the dances were something we looked forward to.
Sure. What amazed me back then during those years was the unity that took place with all of us. We all loved one another.
Absolutely.
I remember having a fight at the Old Boys Club with Henry Payne one time, and what happened was Art Jones pulled us apart, took us back in the room and talked to us about it, and we became friends after that. What most people don't recognize or remember is that that area that you and I grew up with was a melting pot of somewhere between 20 and 25 different nationalities.
Absolutely.
We had no problems with one another. We got along with one another, and the different things that we learned from one another was amazing. That was probably more of an education that most people could have gotten in any university that they would have gone to. We learned so much from one another and how to get along, to take our hat off when we walked into the Boys Club, and to be friendly and to be hospitable, to other people.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that because there's a story that comes to mind really quick. We were introduced to the enshrinement at that time. I'll never forget it. We went and Wilt Chamberlain was being enshrined, larger than life at that time, back in the 70s now. And going and putting on our little blazers and helping one another tie our ties to the best of our ability at that time, and to sit up straight and use the salad fork before your dinner fork and butter your bread and have light conversation around the table, and to be really put in those environments where you had to really show your worth, test your mettle. And that's what the Boys Club always meant to us. It gave us opportunities to really showcase who we were and what we were all about.
Sure. My suspicion would be is that you hold the door for people when they come through the door.
Absolutely.
You take your hat off when you go into different restaurants. And those were the type of things that we learned growing up, to be polite. And that was some of the characteristics that have come out of the many alumni associates that have come out. We've had some great leadership that's come out of the club.
Absolutely.
A couple that come to mind is Congressman Neal.
Absolutely.
He's not just a representative of the United States. He's a representative internationally. He's done a lot of work with the Irish, for example. Another person that comes to mind is Henry Thomas. The work that Henry has done in the black community is unbelievable.
Absolutely.
You know, whether it was on the board up at the University of Massachusetts or with other programs that he's been involved in, done an enormous amount of work in the community and well loved by the people that know him.
And our good sheriff.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. We're very fortunate to have so many leaders who have come through that door and continue to come through that door with the crowning of each Youth of the Year, Mr. Feliciano and others who are doing some amazing things in their chosen career fields or their chosen disciplines. And I've always told everyone, when you cut me, I may bleed red for a little while, but there's a lot of blue in there.
How about Badges for Baseball? That was a program that the sheriff partnered up with in terms of the Springfield Boys Club. Do you remember that program?
Yeah,
Do you know much about it?
Cal Ripken Jr. being
Yes.
very gracious and giving back to boys clubs nationally through that program, and of course what you mentioned with the Sheriff's Department, just so many national models that have been enjoyed by young people like myself. I mentioned the Keystone Club and others. Now with the W.E.B. Du Bois Academy, who had some time there after school with, again, Mr. Art Jones and his leadership, and just bringing in, fundraisers, excuse me, that really encourage all. The Festival of Trees, one of our larger fundraisers to date, does just that, during the holiday season where families can come and, be a part of something great.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks for coming by and talking with us.
Absolutely.
I hope to see you again soon.
Absolutely. Next board meeting.
Yes. Now we're going to introduce Natalie and Lewis, who are members of the Springfield Boys and Girls Club. They're part of that organization that, as we talked about before, that was started 100 years ago, 125 years ago, by the good old boys. Now we're going to talk with both Natalie and Lewis in terms of what's going on in the club today. Natalie, what do you enjoy most about what's going on at the club today?
What I enjoy most about the Boys and Girls Club is the nice adults there and what activities they have planned for us.
Okay. Is there anyone that you can think of that influences you more than someone else at the club today?
Lucinda.
Lucinda? Okay, what is it that she's influenced you about in terms of what's going on with your relationship with her?
Well, she was the one that we met in the beginning when me and my sister went there, and she's the one that told us what was happening, so we can get involved with most of the activities that was there.
What activity do you like the most?
The Puerto Rican parade that we went to.
And how was that? What do you remember about that?
Good. That we when before we were standing there, and then we walked a lot. Well, and then at the end we went, and then she said we did a good job. So yeah.
That's great. Lewis, how about you? What type of activity are you involved in at the club today?
I played for the team.
A basketball team?
Yes, basketball team.
What position?
I was mainly every position. It depends which one did I have to fill in for.
Are you a good shooter?
No.
No. You're learning though, right?
Yes.
That's what the boys club is all about, and the
Uneven
girls
with
club.
each thing.
Good, good. Is there anyone that you can think of that has most influenced you in terms of
Charles.
Charles Hollins?
I don't know his
Yes.
last name.
Yeah. Charles is a great guy. He's been around for a while, and he really knows how to work with the boys and the girls at the club. How has he influenced you?
Well, he's always goofing around, but when it's time to get serious, he's always putting us on point.
Okay. What would you say in terms of character? What might be the one thing that he's taught you more than anything else in terms of character?
He taught me when it's time to play and when it's time to be serious and focus on everything you have to do.
Good answer. Donnie, you've been involved with the Boys Club for many, many years, and now you have a partnership with the Boys Club through Chestnut Accelerated School. What is it that you're doing now in regards to that partnership that you have with the Boys Club?
Well, at Chestnut Accelerated Middle School South, we have what's called a Success in Middle School program, where we've got 4 days a week. Students from the 7th and 8th grade at Chestnut are going to have the opportunity to leave school early to go get involved in enrichment programs at the Boys and Girls Club on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So 4 days a week. All 200 students from Chestnut South will have the opportunity 1 day a week to go. So that will basically get their memberships in order, and then they'll be able to attend what we call our encore programs during the last two sessions or the last 2 blocks of school, last 2 classes, and that bridges, while we have them, it gets them to stay at the Boys and Girls Club afternoon, after school programs, and into the evening. We've got about 20 different community partners that will be contributing to the programs that will be offered during those times and after school.
One of the things that I've heard that Principal Sullivan and yourself just received an award not too long ago. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I think the kids know that it's more than just coming to school. We've changed the culture of the school, where the kids enjoy coming to school. So we won the award for most improved in attendance. We regularly run 98, 99% attendance every morning. And instead of the kids getting off the school bus and scrambling the halls to get to a homeroom, they all have a morning meeting together. All 200 students meet and talk about what's new and good and what they have to look forward to every day.
What do you think was the impact that you created in regards to that program and how you brought the attendance to where it is today, up to 90% or so?
Well, I'm lucky because I've got students like Natalie and Lewis that are real easy to work with because they're born leaders. They have the ability to express themselves, as you could see today. But I think my history, having grown up in the club, in the Boys Club, and having been involved in the Keystone Club and some of the other leadership groups there, was a natural fit for me to be able to bring the Boys Club's facility and some of their staff together with Chestnut South staff to create a unique partnership. And I think we're calling the club the hub of activity as to what's going to be going on up there in rebuilding a teen membership where these kids can feel like they're in a safe place with trusted adults every day after school and into the evenings and even on weekends.
Again, what we'd like you to do is to be at the meeting that we're having for the Alumni Association, which is on September 22nd from 4 to 10 p.m. What's going to happen is you'll run into some old friends, some old family members, and what's going to be provided is food, fun, and entertainment. Please come. I'd like to see you.